trying this one more time. Kids are home from school this week, so there's a lot of people on the Wi-Fi. I am going to get Rob on here and we will get our chat going again. I hope everyone is having a great week so far. And let's see, we are going to go. Back on with us. So nice of you. All right, here we go. Da, da, da. Yay!
Lisa.
Hey. Hi again.
Hi again, Lisa. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. I mean, it just seems to be a part of the course with technology sometimes, right?
It does. Yeah, Sharana said that also. Don't you just love technology? And honestly, I think it's my kids because I've got one on an Xbox. I don't even know what they're doing, snapping or whatever it is kids do these days. So anyway,
Yeah,
we're here.
It's all to be expected.
Yes, yes. All right. So
Great.
let's do it again. Rob is here with me. He helps me at Poppy Grove. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everybody, and hi Lisa, of course. Well, you know me very well, but for everyone else's benefit, of course, we work together. I work with you when it comes to the strategy and the marketing of all things Poppy Grove, which is it's a great thing and a pleasure, something I very much enjoy. But yeah, a little bit of background about me. Copywriting is what I do. Before turning my hand to that, I was a teacher. Again, this is something we share in common, Lisa, the MA in TESOL and that background. But I've been a teacher for around 10 years in total after finishing university, college. So yeah, that's a sort of a brief summary of me. Needless to say, perhaps I'm from the UK. I'm sure you picked that up from my accent, but I'll leave it there.
Okay, there we go. Still there?
Yep, still
I'm telling
here.
you. Okay, all right. So I have a few questions for you because I like to, kind of put people on the spot, see what they think. So I would like to know from you what being a successful entrepreneur looks like.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, a lot of that starts with values. I think it's important to know, first and foremost, why you're going into being an entrepreneur. I think that's pretty key. I know for some people it's by necessity, and I understand that. But I think as long as you understand the values that underpin that, I think that's pretty key. So when you ask me about what does it mean to be a successful entrepreneur, I think if you're in touch with those values, I think that's a really good starting point, because like a stick of rock, those things are the things that run through everything you do. I think it's very different to say that a entrepreneur or a successful entrepreneur is somebody who is successful in a sort of a materialistic way, or is successful because they have the outward qualities of success or the outward hallmarks of success. Of course, these are necessary, or they're great rather. But I think ultimately what underpins success as an entrepreneur for me is the extent to which what I'm doing aligns with my vision and, again, my values. So I would leave it there for now.
Yep, yep. And I appreciate that about you because you put your family first. You care so much about people, what you're doing, what you're putting out into the world. And it's not always about money, right? Like money
Yeah.
is nice, but,
Money's
and
great.
we talk, yeah, sure. But we talk a lot about this work-life balance, and I don't believe that there's balance. You're just kind of always like figuring out what's more important, and then you go toward that. And so I appreciate that you have that mindset as well. I think that's great.
And to pick up on something you've just said there, I think you're right about balance. I think this idea of there always being some attainable balance at any given time, I think I can appreciate where people come from when they say that, but I also think it's actually for the main part largely unattainable. I think it's very difficult to say on any given day that, oh, I've got my work-life balance fixed. I think one of the challenges of being an entrepreneur is that there are some days when you have to work darn hard, and by darn hard I mean 12-hour days, sometimes more. But then equally, if you can put the hard yards in on those days, it may well mean that there are other days where you can afford to have that flexibility. So yes, I think there is a balance from my perspective, but it's not a conventional balance in the sense that, oh, I finish at 5 every day and then I check out, and that's where I get the other half of that balance.
Right. And thankfully, both of us, I think, love what we do. And so that makes it easier to know when we're working extra hard or long hours. It's okay because I love what I'm doing. I love the people that I'm helping and who I'm working with. And then we can move into that, taking that time off and being with family and friends and
Yeah,
self-care,
yeah,
which I'm always
absolutely.
promoting.
100%, Lisa. And I see how hard you work, and I see why you do that hard work, and the passion that goes into it, and the values that you have as well. And I think for me, that's a major reason why I feel so invested in what it is we're doing and the work that you're doing to help people. For me, that's a big deal. So yeah, that matters to me.
Thank you. I have to bring up organization because, well, I'm
Ooh,
very
okay.
type A and I like things in order, but I would like to know how you organize yourself as an entrepreneur. What helps you?
I think, and I'm somewhat joking when I say this, but I think where I think organization finds me. So, and by that, like I say, I'm joking a little bit. When you are under pressure and you've got different things to do, you have to just quickly work things out in your mind and take action, don't you? But to answer your question, I think in the spirit in which you meant it, I think that getting organized is, for me, it's about standing back from the work. So not being reactive necessarily in the way that I just mentioned a minute ago in my sort of attempt to be humorous way, but it's actually about standing back and looking at it as a whole, and then appreciating as a whole what it is you need to do, and then factoring yourself in within that framework, within that picture, and saying, okay, so how can I make this manageable for myself in the context of my life and everything. And I think to that end, what helps me, at a very basic level, is to write things down.
Mhm.
I do feel a great sense of relief almost when I get everything out of my head and I put it on paper, because all of us, we're capable, we're entrepreneurs, we're doing what we're doing for a reason, right? But certainly after a point, you can only hold so much in your head, and there are things that frankly are more important to hold in your head than the things that we just can write down on paper. So for me, that's a good starting point. That's good for the day to day. But then when it comes to the bigger picture stuff, I do think it's important to have a framework in place of some kind. Now, whether that's a business plan, a 5-year plan, whatever kind of plan, and factoring within that goals as well, particularly ones that are smart, so specific, measurable, achievable, time bound, relevant, blah
Ooh.
blah blah. I think that's all good stuff. I think trying to look at your big picture in that way, and attach deadlines and goals that are time bound, which are achievable and which you can measure, I think is a really, really important way of going about your business. Yeah.
Do you all see why he's a teacher, right? He's so great. I'm just like, bam, bam with the acronyms, and I love it. Smart, which I'm constantly trying to, yeah, well, I'll say, oh, I've got this lofty goal, and then you come in and say, well, now let's look at this, in your proper British accent. I'm like, no, come on now. We got to make sure that it's, achievable, measurable. Yeah, exactly. And then I do. Yes. All right. No, that's great. I love that. And you're right, because getting it out of your head means hopefully not waking up at 3 a.m. and thinking about all the things, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good. Get it on paper. Yes.
Absolutely. I think, but that's not to say as well that there won't be times when, for instance, you are awake at 3 a.m. I mean, we had this conversation just the other day, didn't we, Lisa? I said to you, God, I'm really tired. I'm absolutely exhausted today, because it was one of those days where, despite everything being written down, I nonetheless woke up at 3 and I was at my desk by 5. Now, I'm not trying to be clear to everyone who's listening, viewing this, this is not me kind of saying, oh, that's something you should do. Oh, hey, look at me. Look how great I am. No. That's just, I think, a reaction to the reality that even though we can write everything down, we can be super organized, or attempt to be, nonetheless, it's really hard sometimes to not feel a sense of stress, to not feel a sense of anxiety and goodness, I've got a lot to do,
Yeah. Right.
So yes, organization really matters, but I think, and the more organized you are, the less you need to experience that. But inevitably, we're all going to have times when that sort of sense of anxiety, that sort of, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do, will creep up on us, you know, even at 3 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, or during Thanksgiving week when there's just so much going on. Sharana's on here, and we were actually talking about this last week. I was telling her like I just got all these things, and then I just get so crabby, and yeah. So we just do the best that we can, and I don't know, it makes us human, and I think it makes us relatable to share that side of us, where it's like, you know what, today's just a crappy day,
Yeah, I
and we move on,
agree.
right?
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think it's the ability to share these stories that actually makes the journey bearable. I mean, I think that's one of the realities that is I think that's something that's very true about being human. I think we can have as many tools and systems in place as we like, and indeed a great many of them are going to help if we pick the right ones. I mean, that's where your expertise is so valuable, Lisa. But I think I think at the end of the day, one of the most powerful ways to overcome any adversity, or any work stress, a mountain of work you might be facing, and the anxiety that comes with that is to know that there are people you can speak to about it, or even better, people who are going through or have been through that same journey as you. And I think having that touch point, and indeed we talk about this just as, you know, professionals, or you know, day to day, Lisa, don't we? There are times when I say to you, how are we going to navigate this? And knowing that we're both going on that journey does make it a lot easier versus, say, you know, it just being one of us.
Yes. Yep, agreed. And having that accountability is key, because I know if I have someone to answer to, or someone who's relying on me, then I'm going to probably step up a little quicker. Just how I roll.
Yeah.
So we were talking about being human, but I also want to talk about the soulful part, because, you know, when I went on this journey with Poppy Grove, I was in the wine industry for a long time, and I came across a lot of wonderful people, but also some people that I really didn't want to work with anymore. It was more of just this hustle money. I look at what my Pinot Noir, whatever. Anyhow, and so I really want to work with entrepreneurs who care and who want to make a difference. And so to me, I call that kind of a soulful entrepreneur journey. And when you and I started working together, I was really only focusing on female entrepreneurs. And then I was like, hey, this guy actually cares. And then I met another Diego, right? And Ty and Darnell, and like all these other males started popping up who like care and want to make a difference. And so I know that I want to see how you feel about that soulful entrepreneur, because I don't know, maybe that just seems a little more female centric, but I'm seeing it in more males, and they're coming into my universe and into my sphere. And, you know, obviously somebody's trying to give me a message. And so I'm going with that, but I would love to have your take on it as a male.
Well, for me, I really find I suppose I want to say reconciliation, but that seems a little too much for this. I'll go with like the kind of the joining of the notion of entrepreneur with the notion of spiritual. And we have talked about this before, haven't we? And it's this idea of, from my perspective, we think about what an entrepreneur is, and I think there is, sadly, a bit of a connection when it comes to this word entrepreneur with sort of a kind of a ruthless world, largely male dominated, and quite cutthroat. And that's understandable. You know, we look at history, recent history, we can find our explanations there. But I think, yeah, there is definitely a connotation that comes with entrepreneur where there is a lot of that. And I think what's I suppose quite attractive about this idea of a spiritual entrepreneur is someone who's not necessarily driven by those demands, or who perhaps is, but who doesn't respond to them the same way. He says, actually, rather than reaching out for the kind of the typical things that I suppose are a connotation with this idea of entrepreneur, you know, like lack of sleep all of the time, and like going for money, and being fairly ruthless, and not having loads of values. I think it's an affirmation, the spiritual and the entrepreneur together, that actually you can do one thing. You don't have to do one thing without the other. And to clarify this idea of spiritual, I tend, again, it kind of comes back to values for me. It's like, why are you doing what you are doing? Sorry. What underpins that? Is it goodwill, or is it a need to make money? And I think if it's goodwill and it's a desire to help other people, the chances are, and indeed to other people who are listening to this now, you may well be a spiritual entrepreneur, soulful entrepreneur. So for me, I think what attracts me is that it's the fact that, yes, you can go out and make money for yourself, but you can do it in a way that cares for other people as well. You can do it with the right attitude, with great values. Who's stopping you? In fact, you're probably going to be fuller and more whole as a person, and so are other people, by dint of you doing that.
And we all rise together.
And we rise together. Yeah, completely.
Yep. And I just love that. Now, when the spiritual, the soulful, when we first started working together, I talked a lot about intuition, and I often felt, I wonder if Rob's going to think that I'm like, wow, really out there. And but you went along with it, and you helped me with the copy, and we sorted it out. But now I wonder, now that we're almost a year into this journey, how you feel about intuition and how that plays out in your world.
My intuition about intuition, you could say.
Yes, yes.
I think it's one of those things. Intuition, I mean, and I think my thinking on this has certainly evolved since we've been working together, because I think there are ways. I think you can look at intuition as something quite basic. Now, let's maybe tackle this from that standpoint first. And by that, I mean, kind of just like a simple gut reaction. We get a gut reaction to certain things. But however, I think there is a big difference between how you react to that and how you respond to it. So I think if you can react to a gut feeling, but I think actually taking time to really understand that's where it's important. So to come full circle and to, I think, address your question, what are my thoughts on intuition now? I think it's a very, very important aspect of being an entrepreneur. And I know we've unpacked this, Lisa, as well, as part of some of the work we've done recently when it comes to the 3 clairs. So clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience. So you can further unpack intuition still. But yeah, I feel strongly that if you're not listening to yourself, that innermost voice, again, it's kind of like the head-heart distinction, isn't it? And again, when I think of problems, I often look at them in these terms. What does my head say? What does my heart say? I think intuition is often the opposite of what your head is saying, or it's in kind of counterbalance to it, right? So I certainly think when we think as entrepreneurs about what's important, what we need to do, I think you would be remiss not to give consideration to what you're hearing from your innermost self. And for me, that's intuition. Yeah.
Great answer, Rob.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Lisa.
You get an A.
Boxes. Yeah.
No, but really, it's important to listen to that, like you said, that the gut reaction. And then how do you respond? Because it's hard to know, especially on this entrepreneurial journey of, is this the right path? Is this the right offer? I don't know. We have to figure out, what people are going to be drawn to and how to, bring in more clients. But I have found that by getting still and listening, we figure, and then talking to people, of course, and asking them, well, what is it that you need? But that is the way to do it, right? Of just like getting still and listening. Yeah. And so I appreciate that you go with that with me of, let's go down that path and see. And people are really drawn to it. They love it. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth wrapped up in it, to be honest. I think something that we also should think about when it comes to intuition is that it's like a deep internal should. And what I mean by that is it's like an innermost, not compulsion, but like, how to put this? It's something that we should pay attention to that's coming from within us. Now, in life, there are a lot of competing shoulds. We have the shoulds of other people. We have society's should. And then we have the should of we have our own should, which is the should up here, the should of the brain, which is telling us, oh, you should do this. And usually that's like a mirror of what society, I think, sorry, maybe being a bit philosophical here, but, that's kind of been ingrained into us by what other people say you should do and so on. So there are lots of these competing shoulds. And I think, to access our innermost, or I suppose most authentic should, I think that can only come from really hearing, listening to your intuition and understanding what that voice, deeper down than your brain, is saying to you. And I think that's where as an entrepreneur, to be aligned as a human and as an entrepreneur, I think you need to consider, again, yes, what the rational mind, what the brain is telling you, what your immediate impulses are coming from upstairs, but at the same time, what's coming from your heart, what's coming from further down, even in your gut, what are these things telling you?
Yep, I agree. And then, once you really feel into that, and then you make those decisions, and then I like to say, like, stop shooting all over yourself, right? Because
Yeah.
we don't need to listen to all those outside. It's like what's in here that matters. Yeah. So good, thank you. So we've been on a while now. Is there anything else that you would like to tell people about Lobster Copy, your company?
Yeah, for sure. So hey guys, turning to me and what I'm up to, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit about me. Okay, so what is Lobster Copy? Well, it is a copywriting business first and foremost. I'm looking to take on clients going forward, new clients. The idea behind Lobster Copy is to basically provide wicked copy to people who are needing someone who can really understand their tone of voice, but also who can take care of their marketing strategy, looking at everything from their CRM, so how they manage their emails, through to web copy, social media copy, you name it. So it's a project that is currently in growth, but it's one I'm very excited about. And like I said, I'm looking to take on people who I have a great vibe with. And if you're interested, do get in touch and we can work something out.
Yeah, Rob, where is the best place for people to find you?
To be honest, I welcome communication from people either here on Instagram. I don't tend to use Instagram a big deal, if I'm honest. I'm more about LinkedIn. Or alternatively, you can visit my website, and that's a great place to check out what I do, though I do need to update my website. I've just been, again, it comes back to being super busy. But yeah, I would say LinkedIn is probably the best shout.
Okay. Yeah, well, you've been a little busy helping Poppy grow, so thank
Yeah,
you for that. Yeah.
totally.
And just, a shout out because you have been so great in helping me find my voice, encouraging me to use that authentic, vulnerable, sometimes snarky voice in our copy. And you really understand what it is that I'm trying to put out there. And so if anyone's looking for a copywriter, he's great. And it's just helpful because, you can spend hours and hours working in or on the business and trying to get it all perfect. And then you're missing out on clients and actually helping more people. And so, having your help has been great because then I can get out there, I do my advocacy work, and I can work with clients and just do all the other things. So thank you. It's been great.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure, and it's been a wonderful journey so far, and I hope we can carry on.
Oh yes, for sure. So if anyone needs help, reach out to Rob. Lobstercopy.com. Is that's the one? For your website?
Yeah, lobstercopy.com. Yep. Alternatively, my LinkedIn, Robert Lowton, Lowton, and you can find me there, or just search for Lobster Copy on LinkedIn for sure.
Perfect. Yay! All right. Well, I won't keep you much longer. For those of you who joined us, thank you so much. If you're in the United States and you celebrate, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you. And hopefully we will do this again because Rob and I always have a lot to talk about. So if you like this and you have other, things that you'd like us to cover with spiritual entrepreneurs, intuition, or, my favorite, getting organized, we are happy to cover that in another live. So thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Lise.
For being here.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, too right. Speak to you soon, everybody. And thank you, Lisa. I look forward to chatting to you later on and in due course.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers, folks. Bye.